Good morning, everyone. The Ag Committee will come to order. Clayton, would you call the roll, please?
Senator Crago.
Here.
Senator Ide.
Here.
Senator McEwen.
Here.
Senator Pearson.
Here.
Chairman French.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, first up this morning is House Bill 117, the omnibus water bill construction. And yeah, enough paper here to, yeah. Anyway, Jason, you want to run us through this, or Sherry, do you want to? You, Chairman, okay. We'll go through the bill and then at some point towards the end or whatever, after there's some questions, there's looks like a number of amendments to it, so we'll have that to deal with too. So Sherry, do you want to, or Senator, you want to take?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm gonna just do a general overview and then I'll let Director Mead take you through the actual bill and the amendments on the House side. If you have amendments in front of you, I would sure appreciate seeing those if they're new amendments. The first thing, since there's a couple of new members to this committee, I did just want to talk about where the money for this program comes from. So we have severance tax and we have severance tax below the cap, which is $155 million. These accounts are filled from 12% of that below the cap of the $155 million. And that is in, the accounts are found on tab B of your notebook. If you have that in front of you, it tells you how much money is flowing into each account and what is available for expenditure for those accounts. And this is an important program. I know we've talked about it a lot. There are projects all across the state. We already sent the planning bill across the way, and we were up in the House Ag Committee this morning at 7:30 with the planning bill, and then this is the construction bill. Of particular note in this bill, and some of the things we worked on with Select Water, was the GID irrigation tunnel collapse. We added an extra $20 million for that, and that is even coming in higher than they expected, even though they changed to a construction manager at risk contract. They had hoped that that would help control the costs, but for some reason those costs are skyrocketing, so we may have to look at this again next year. The other big one was the Laprelle Dam that was condemned. It was under a breach order, and that is well underway as of now. I have a report from the irrigation district that's well underway and should be completed by April 1st. So those two emergencies came back to us again dealing with our aging irrigation infrastructure. One of the changes that we made was we decided to sweep money back from the Alkali Creek Reservoir project and use that to replace the LSRA funds. It is funded either way due to a mechanism of how we address that. However, the Select Water Committee felt that it was very important that we're utilizing our state funds correctly. So in the water development accounts where that fund was housed until it could be utilized, there was $59 million appropriated. We took back 50 million, and Senator Crago will remember that. He's on the Select Water Committee as well. That's only receiving like 1.2% interest in that account, whereas the LSRA receives 5 to 6% as of right now. So we felt it was a more appropriate use of funds, a better way to fund it, to sweep that back. The other part about that is those easements are not in place. I think there's something like 90% in place, but the people that are still remaining are the most affected landowners. And there was some contention about eminent domain being used or not used in that project. So we left them, I think there's 5 million left. There was 59 million to start. We thought we left them 9 million, but it's actually another 5 to secure those easements. And when those easements are secured, then they can come back for the rest of the money that they will need. They will likely need more than the 50 million. So we would, address that at this time. So that is the reason for that change and why we did it. And what the reason for the Select Water Committee's recommendation in that way. So I would, those are the two things or three things I kind of wanted to address. Director Mead will take you through the bill, but if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
Yeah, just a second. Senator Steinmetz, to be clear, I thought I saw in here somewhere it was $9 million left over for Alkali Creek. Are you saying there's 9 million plus 5 million?
Mr. Chairman, no, they have utilized some of it over the years because this project has been ongoing since, I believe, 2007 or 8. So they've utilized some of it to secure easements and other things with the project. So we left them 9 million, but they've spent some of it, if that makes sense. So I think they have around 5 million left, is what they testified. The Water Improvement District.
We'll get into it maybe further, but why should there be any money left in there? Since they've been working on it forever and they can't get their act together on it, and the $50 million or whatever was pulled from that project to go to LaPrel. So why should there be any money left in that?
Mr. Chairman, because they got a time extension to work on the easements. And so, in fact, we had only given them a year, but the committee across the hall gave them, I think, 4 years, if I remember correctly. So they have a time extension with which to work on those easements. That would be, something for all of you to consider. But as we were working on it, we felt like that it was prudent to let them try to secure those easements if they can come to an agreement that is beneficial for both sides of the issue. For those landowners that are affected, then, we didn't see a reason not to let them proceed with that.
Okay, Senator Ide, and then, well, just a second. I'm sorry, Senator. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Jason Mead, Director of the Water Development Office. Just to add a few details. So the Nowood River Storage Project is how this started out with the watershed study back in 2007, 2008, actually. We didn't really focus in on the Alkali Creek Reservoir site until probably 2015. It was permitted through the Corps of Engineers and the BLM in 2019, and then design started on it. So yes, we've been working over in that watershed for a number of years, but specifically on the Alkali Creek Reservoir, it's been 5 to 6 years. I would also say that discussions, not everybody benefits from a reservoir necessarily. In this particular case, not everybody does. And we're filling the reservoir with an existing ditch, so it would potentially require modifications to that ditch. And the initial discussions between the district and those affected landowners, all the landowners, or a good majority of them that were needed easements through still, came back and said, well, if we can put that ditch into a pipe, we'd like that, and we'd probably move forward. But after the engineers looked at that, that increased the cost by like $30 million. So that just wasn't something the Select Water Committee wanted to proceed forward with after some discussion. So now we're going back to the drawing board, having another round of mediation between the district and those landowners, try to come to some resolution on what they might be willing to look at for mitigation or to keep their project or their operations whole.
Okay, it seems like an awful lot of time, and the longer I wait, the longer any cost is, if there is ever a go-ahead for a reservoir. It's just, hopefully they don't try the eminent domain thing with the landowners, but that's just me speaking. Senator?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You guys are kind of all hit on it a little bit. Could you give me a little more detail on the easement, eminent domain situation? I mean, is it all regarding just ditches, and kind of explain a little bit about that, if you would, please? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Ide. So there's a number of landowners along the Anita Ditch, which is the ditch that takes water out of Medicine Lodge Creek and then would feed the reservoir. There's also the reservoir area that would be inundated. A portion of the $9 million that Senator Steinmetz mentioned has gone to acquiring that land that the reservoir would sit on, but the upper portions of that inundation area lies on another landowner, and there's discussions with those folks trying to get easements or land acquisition from them still as well. The initial discussions from way back when we were even in the feasibility studies, having public meetings, just talking about different reservoir alternatives as we go through the analysis was, we want to work with everybody. We understand there could be impacts on folks' operations. We want to mitigate those, make sure we're addressing all that. Those conversations continue to happen. We had at least one new landowner that moved into the watershed on a particular ditch that we were looking at needing to use kind of within the last several years. And couldn't really, in the conversations with them about, what can we do to help out, to make this work? The question eventually came up, well, is if we can't find anything that works, then what? And it was brought up at one point in time, well, the district has the power of eminent domain. That discussion occurred with the commission and the select water committee following that, because things kind of blew up at that point with that word being thrown out, obviously, and nobody wants to see that, and we never wanted to see that in the first place. We want to work with everybody and try to make this work. So, but the question was asked, the answer was given, and then all of a sudden, things kind of turned loose from there. So, yeah.
Senator Steinmetz.
Mr. Chairman, if I could address that, Mr. Chairman, Senator Ide. So that's when we got called in. This is kind of, it's been an ongoing project. And as you know, when you serve on a select committee or even a committee like this, sometimes you don't hear from landowners directly, you hear from the people applying. And so through constituents in my district and people that lived up there, we heard about the situation with the eminent domain. And so I contacted the legislators in that area, and we had a landowner meeting up there. And that's when their concerns were brought forward, and we started, relooking at this project and trying to make it fair for everyone, and not just the people who wanted the reservoir, but make sure we're dealing fairly with everyone. And I'm sure everyone had tried to do that. It just came to a bit of a head when the word eminent domain was used, and rightly so. And we kind of, as the Select Water Committee, put the brakes on and said, listen, eminent domain is not an option here. And we put the brakes on that, because I don't think that benefits our program. We're not here to take people's property. We're here to improve water storage and water structures and infrastructure across the state. So that's what we did. Those were the actions we took, and that's really brought this project in the limelight. To the credit of the office, they're doing so much more work now, securing easements ahead of time rather than letting it get to this point where we have $50 million setting out there and we don't have all of our easements. They've taken very proactive steps to work on that process in the at the beginning of the project rather than coming to the end. And here we're dealing with this. We all inherited this, and so we're doing our best to be fair to everyone, the project sponsors, the affected landowners, everyone. So that's why we felt the need to allow for a little bit of extension of time and some money there, because people have invested a lot of time and money to try to develop this water resource. So we just want to be fair to everyone.
So the bottom line then is pulled the $50 million to go into the Lizard to go to LaPrelle from the Alkali Creek Reservoir. And there's nine minus whatever's been used up, so approaching 5 million left in there. And they've got up to 4 years, did you say, to secure those easements, or then what? If that continues to stall out, is the Select Water Committee, well, I guess you can't predict what you're going to do, but you're gonna say, man, we tried, but this isn't working out?
Mr. Chairman, I can't predict the future, but they would have a time limitation. All of these projects have time limitations on them to where if they're not completed, the money reverts back to the program. So a lot of times you'll see a lot of projects that get time extensions because, there's a few little details they haven't worked out, et cetera. So it's not unheard of to have time extensions. We usually have those every year. So at that point, then the Water Development Commission and the Select Water Committee would make recommendations as to whether they would want to extend the time period or not. And at that point, we'd have to decide whether we we need the funding for the project as well. We just didn't feel that taking the money out of the LSRA for LaPrel was the most prudent when it's gaining more interest in the LSRA than it is in the water development account. And so since LaPrel is going to be ready to go sooner than this project because of the easements, we felt it was a more prudent use of funds.
Okay, did you have some? Senator Pearson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Steinmetz. So what I'm wondering is, in this project, what kind of restrictions were the project managers trying to approach landowners with? Like, what were the complaints of the landowners when you met with them?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Pearson, there was a myriad of complaints but they didn't feel that they had equal representation at the table. That is why we initiated the mediation process through the Department of Agriculture so that there could be an unbiased third party there to try to work through the issues that they had. They felt things were a little bit uneven, and we wanted to make sure that they weren't. We wanted to make sure everyone is at the table with fair and equal voices so that they could work through this problem as a community and try to solve it. And so that's been our approach. But there was a myriad of concerns, and you can probably look back at the last Select Water Committee hearing before we came here, where we actually shortened the time frame to, I think, a year. And there are some of the complaints there, and there have been some emails I think there's an email probably in your inbox for this meeting about some of the issues that were had. So, yeah.
Further questions? Before we move on to let the director go through it, there's 2 amendments. Are you aware of both of them?
Mr. Chairman, I am not. If there are new amendments, I have not seen them.
Clayton, could you come over for a second? Make sure Sherry's got these 2, please.
And if I remember correctly, these are the amendments that were already made. This is a proposed amendment, if I understand.
Is this, then why did they give it to me?
I think there might only be.
There's one from Senator Boner, and then there's one from Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, the one from Representative Yin is something we handed out this morning. That's just to explain the amendments from the House side. So I don't think that's a new amendment. So it'd just be the Boner amendment.
So why'd you pass it out then?
So when we go through the bill, we're going to refer to that so we can provide some explanation of how the bill has been amended on the House side
Right,
before it
it's
showed
not,
up here.
it's not in the engrossed copy.
It is, but it's just for clarification.
Okay, all right.
Ignore it for now, sorry.
Okay, all right. So Senator Steinmetz, you've got the newest one there.
Mr. Chairman, I do, and I see the good Senator Boner is here, whose amendment it is. So when you're ready to look at that amendment, he probably knows exactly. I'm tracking it in as we speak, so.
Well, should we track that in now or go through the bill first?
Mr. Chairman, I would go through the bill first and I will track it in while you do that.
Oh, yeah, all right. All right, Director, if you'd walk us through this, please.
Mr. Chairman, so you've got the big 3-ring binder in front of you. The majority of it is recommendations. It's kind of a resource for you guys on the floor if you get questions about projects. So tab C, and then the rest of the 3-ring binder. In the front page, you've got an 11x17 blue sheet. That's what we're gonna work off of to be as efficient as possible. And as we go down through the projects, if you look, that first column calls out a tab. So if you have any specific information or get questions on the floor, you can go to that tab in the 3-ring binder and read more about it. Basically the recommendations that the commission and the Select Water Committee reviewed and approved. Okay, so again, working from the summary blue sheet, I'm gonna go through this fairly quickly. But in the first section, this is our construction projects out of account 1, new development. We've got 3 projects, Bighorn Regional, Hoback Junction, and the Saws Joint Powers Upper Road Transmission Main. On the House side, during Committee of the Whole, the original bill had cloud seeding, both our aerial program in the Sierra Madre Medbo range, as well as our ground-based program in the Wind River Sierra Madre mountain ranges. And on the Committee of the Whole in the House, those 2 cloud seeding program, or the funding for that, was amended out. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Also, in this first section, we are putting water or money into the small water account 1. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is during the House Ag Committee, $20 million was provided to look at or investigate the feasibility and, if feasible, the design and construction of 1 or more wells necessary to provide additional supply to land served by the La Prelle Irrigation District. So in other words, trying to find some groundwater to get them through until the new dam was constructed, which is expected in roughly 2029, 2030 timeframe. Digging into that a little bit deeper, there was then also an amendment brought during the second reading, which is what I mentioned you have in front of you. And what that amendment did was it took the $20 million and it broke it down into $1 million for exploration to determine the placement of wells, 1 or more. It also added in the terminology or other water projects within the La Prelle Irrigation District. And then it provided, instead of $20 million in grant, it broke it down into that $1 million for exploration and then $19 million in loan, a 30-year loan at 2% interest for the design and construction of 1 or more of those wells and or other water projects. Looking at that, we've got a couple of concerns, I guess, with that legislation. One being the word, and it really comes down to the amendment that was brought, the Yin Amendment. By bringing in other water projects, that changes terminology. And in the water world, state engineer's office world, the term additional has certain meaning. So I think leaving that term in there limits our office on what we could actually explore for other water supply projects. And I might just have George Mosier here explain that real quick.
Okay, before you go on, hopefully La Prelle is finished and ready to go by, like you said, 29 or 30. Hopeful, keep fingers crossed. Then why the need for a 30-year note? If on this, 1 million up front as a grant, I think it is, and then the other 19 million as for other water projects for the next 30 years if the dam's ready here in hopefully 5 years' time.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I think, again, they're looking at other options for the district to get by until the new dam is rebuilt. So they're going to be running off direct flow water rights, and that's not a very prolific watershed, so the water runs out fairly quickly. It's fairly low elevation watershed. So this original amendment and then the Yin Amendment considers looking at groundwater options, going out there and drilling a bunch of wells, or other water supply projects, however you want to define that, to mitigate the effects of not having a dam for the next 4 to 5 years. And the 30-year note, I would assume, is if you're going to take out a 19 or up to $19 million worth of loan, that you want to have a certain time period to pay that back within, that may make it affordable for the district. That'd be a question for the district on these temporary type water mitigation type projects. Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chair, George Mosier with the Water Development Office. I think that it's important when considering this particular section, this La Prairie Irrigation District Additional Supply 2025. This was something that was amended into this particular bill during the House Ag Committee consideration, and ultimately something that came by way of that process as opposed to being something that was crafted as part of the original bill. So the office's consideration of it is something that has kind of happened on the fly also. To that end, as Director Mead mentioned, we have some concerns with the term additional used here. That might have been good as originally contemplated when we were only looking at groundwater supply, but if we're looking at other supplies, the state engineer's office has terms attached to various usages and ways that irrigation supplies are stacked on land. So for instance, supplemental or secondary or additional might all be terms that have a specific meaning for water rights and in the state engineer's office. So if the intent here is to cast a broad net to try to find all kinds of options for supply, the office would suggest removing additional. If you choose to go down that path, additional on the engrossed version appears on page 11, line 14, page 11, line 19, page 12, line 2, and page 13, line 1. In addition, there is also some disconnect in this particular project with who would ultimately be constructing the facilities if in fact the feasibility reveals that there could be a project to do. And so I would direct your attention basically to the idea that on page 13, starting at line 16, where the current bill says office shall proceed with construction of wells or other projects, that actually that doesn't align very well with page 12, starting on line 22, where it says to La Prairie Irrigation District for design and construction of one or more wells or other projects. One way that could be changed is by changing the project sponsor to make it no longer the state of Wyoming and making the project sponsor La Prairie Irrigation District. And then to align with that, one would only need to remove, basically starting on line 16 of page 13, where it says the office shall, and perhaps move that to La Prairie Irrigation District shall.
But who's paying for it? La Prairie or the state of Wyoming?
Mr. Chairman, with the yin change, La Prairie would be taking out loans.
Right, for the wells, but for the dam.
Oh, the
itself.
dam?
It's the state of Wyoming and the
State of
feds
Wyoming and the federal government,
is
yes.
paying for the $180 million, roughly, approximately, for the
Assuming
dam,
everything
correct?
passes in the construction bill, yes.
And then giving it to La Prairie Irrigation District. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, let's back up a little bit. Your concern on the yin amendment down there, line 22, need to remove the word additional, correct?
Mr. Chairman, there's probably two ways of skinning the cat here. You can either go back to the original House amendment, which would basically leave the $20 million just as all as grant and remove the amendment altogether. which made it $1 million for exploration
the
and
rest
19 million for loan. Or, remove the words additional in the existing language, and there's 3 occurrences of that, which we can point out.
Yeah, would you,
Okay, so on page 11,
yeah, just a second, let us all get there. Page 11, okay,
line 19,
line 19,
last word is additional on that sentence.
additional there,
It would need
okay.
to be removed there. Page 12, line 2, second word,
12, line 2,
remove
okay.
additional there, and then page 13, line 1,
Page 13. Page 13.
line
Line 1. Okay, that's the 3 spots where the word additional,
Yeah, George just pointed out, I guess, the name of the project on page 11, line 14, says Laprelle Irrigation District Additional Supply. You might as well just remove additional in the title as well.
okay, what
There's no
line?
confusion. Line 14 on page 11.
Remove additional there.
Yep. And then we would also suggest, based on the fact that with the Yin amendment, this changed from grant to loan.
Correct.
And to take care of the ownership of whatever, if it's wells or other water supply projects, is to change the project sponsor. So we're on page 11, line 17, to the Laprelle Irrigation District instead of the state of Wyoming. And then on page 13, line 16,
Why does that need on page 11, line 17, project sponsor? Isn't it like we just discussed, the state and the feds building this? Why would it be, Laprelle's not building it?
Mr. Chairman, so we're confusing, I guess, the reconstruction of the dam, which is not what we're talking about here. This is, that is later on in the bill. The 60 million that Senator Steinmetz mentioned, the 182 million, that's not this. This is to construct wells or other water supply projects to mitigate for the lack
Oh,
of having
okay,
storage water
alright.
for the next 4 years or 5.
Okay,
So if they're gonna take out loans to go drill wells, then they should probably own them. So having them being the sponsor
Right,
makes most
right.
sense.
okay. I
So
got
then
it.
on page 13, line 16, at the end of that sentence, it says the office shall proceed with construction. We would like that to say the Laprelle Irrigation District or sponsor may or shall.
So it'll read, the Laprelle Irrigation District. Leave the word shall in there.
Shall or may, whichever you choose.
Yeah, because they may change their mind, so, for now, let's go with may. The Laprelle Irrigation District may proceed with the construction of the wells or other water projects. Because they might change their mind, you know. Or they may drill one and say, this ain't working out. So, well, just hope the dam is built as fast as possible.
Okay, with that, I can
Okay.
keep moving through the bill if you
Yeah,
would like.
please.
Okay. Thanks, George. Okay, so moving on to the second section of projects. So we are, it says level 3 rehabilitation, section 1 on the blue sheet. These are our count 2 new construction projects. We've got 12 projects. They range from check structures to water transmission pipelines and tanks for municipalities, and as well as water transmission pipelines for agricultural districts. And then we also have funding for our small water account 2. This all equates to $17,094,331 in account 2. Then we move down and we get into our last block of projects, which is our amendments. We are transferring a couple of wells, the Aladdin well to the Aladdin Water District. We also we want to add some funds to our account 2 sponsor contingency program. We've got 14 total project amendments. 9 of those 14 are just for time extensions. 3 of them are for time as well as additional funding. We have 1 that's just for funds only because it's moving from pre-construction to construction. And then, as Senator Steinmetz mentioned, for the Alkali Creek Reservoir project, there's the $50 million reversion to account 3 that would then be transferred to account 2 for the Laprelle project. And then Senator Steinmetz also already mentioned the Goshen Irrigation District, the $20 million from LISRA, and $60 million from LISRA for the Laprelle Dam rehabilitation. So with that, would like to briefly go to page,
And that's not on the blue sheet.
those are on the
Goshen.
blue sheet. They are,
Where at?
go all the way down to near the bottom. If you're looking at the bill page number, which is the second column, it's when you get down to 56 and 58.
56.
So 58
Goshen,
is
okay.
where I'd like to direct your attention. That's Laprelle.
20 and 60, okay, all right.
Okay, so page 58. Let me find my amendments here. Okay, so during the second reading in the House, there was an amendment that was brought and then it was divided. But so on page 59. Let me catch up with myself here. Sorry, I'm gonna move over to page 60. So page 60, line 10. There was an addition that the commission and the Water Development Office shall ensure that the new dam is constructed before the existing dam is decommissioned and ensure that the new dam will provide for a similar amount of water as the existing dam. At this point in time, the Laprelle Irrigation District has provided signed a contract with a construction company to decommission the dam, and the decommission started. The project was permitted at the end of January. That was about the same time they went under contract, and the decommissioning started the first week of February. So the decommissioning of the dam has already started in advance of this amendment being brought. The office and the commission has no authority to ensure that the new dam is reconstructed before the old dam is decommissioned, and in fact, that's already taking place. So we would request that that be removed, because it's not something that we have authority to do, and
Remove on
Started.
page 60, line 10 through 14.
that's right. And then also as part of the amendment, or the amendment as divided, there were a number of special conditions brought. And they really start on page 61 at the top. So the amendment is looking at the commission and the office shall conduct a study no later than October 1st to look at the possibility of hydroelectric power generation, process to obtain easement for public access, because this dam currently
What line are
does.
you on? I'm sorry, what line are you on?
Page 60, line 1 is where the different special conditions start. So line 1, 2, and 3 talk about looking at the possibility of hydropower.
Okay,
I'm sorry, was I saying 60? Sorry, page 61, line 1.
okay.
My apologies. So lines 1 through 3 is to look at hydropower. Lines 5 and 6 is to look at an easement for public access, because the dam currently has no public access. It's surrounded by private landowners. Lines 8 through 10 is looking at the feasibility of recreational opportunities such as boating, swimming, and fishing. And then lines 12 through 13 look at establishing an increased permanent water storage options at the reservoir, which would kind of fall in line with recreational use.
So, those stay in, they're just a part of the division of the amendment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I generally just wanted to point out the amendments that were brought. Initially, hydropower was considered. When you look at that, you are typically looking at year-round production of hydropower.
Right.
And on agricultural projects, that tends not to pencil out, because we're looking at somewhere between 2 to 4 months of releases out of the reservoir to address, supplemental irrigation.
Right,
In pretty much every instance I can think of where we've looked at that in the past, it has not penciled out economically that would make sense based on the cost of adding hydropower. Not saying we can't look at that, but we'll
want
have
that
to
removed? Okay, Brian, Senator Boner, let me get to your, you're gonna discuss your amendment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay, I actually have a bill up in another committee. It's okay if I jump in here, because that's exactly where the amendment is. Basically, it would delete on page 60, all the special conditions, except for that first one, available federal funds shall be expended prior to the expenditure of funds, state funds. So we'd be deleting all those additional requirements that are problematic. I mean, we've already done them. Or, you know, in the case of paragraph B, I mean, they've already started decommissioning. That's a poison pill for the whole project. So we definitely need to get rid of that. And so, yeah, my amendment would get rid of paragraphs B, C, B, C, and all the subparagraphs of C. Obviously, I talked to the property owners. There's two of them basically up in this neck of the woods, and nobody even, sought their input when it came to accessing their private property here. So it's a very ill-conceived amendment. I hope that the committee can remove both those paragraphs.
So currently, so get this straight, in line, in page 60 and 61, it's in the bill, your amendment removes it, correct?
Yeah, paragraphs B and C on page 60 and the beginning of 61.
And 1 through 13 on page 61.
Yeah, 1 through 4, those are subparagraphs of paragraph C. So-
Okay, all right.
Right, yeah, 1 through 13, correct, yeah.
All right, we'll make sure we look at that when we work the bill then.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just asked the question.
Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. Senator Boner, so I know that I've had people talk to me about this project, and the reason that they were asking for the access and that was because the state of Wyoming was paying for this project and the federal government, so and I don't agree with intrusion on people's private property either, but I just wanted to know your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, that'd be a significant change in the way we do water development. And, maybe that's an interim topic for TRW. We can look at not just water development, think about all the funds we spend on school facilities too. I mean, those are public funds. Why don't we have public access to our school facilities, So maybe that's a broader issue that can be brought up, but to attach it just to this one project for some reason, when all the other projects we do don't have those considerations, I think it's a little odd, and I don't know why it's in there. Got tacked on in the House on second reading, but if we're gonna do it, let's at least be consistent.
Senator Iden and Senator
Yeah,
Steinmetz.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, to follow up on her question, that's kind of where I was going. What's the status of public access to it as it sits existing? Is it landlocked effectively? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it's surrounded by private property, the reservoir as it is.
Yeah, because the public can go to, was it that Natural Bridge little park there? But past that, on up the stream, it's not public property, right?
Correct, even the dam doesn't have public access to it, the dam itself, so.
Okay, all right, Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just to address the public purpose of this, so there is the Natural Bridge Dam below it, and if, I know the dam was originally constructed for irrigation, but it is a part of the flood control system now. So for example, the state fairgrounds that we have invested millions upon millions of dollars in are in the floodplain. It's a high hazard dam because of I-25 and how that runs. So there are public benefits to repairing this dam.
Senator, is the college in the floodplain too, down there or not? Or
Mr. Chairman.
depends on how big the flood is,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well,
Okay.
that would be a monster, but.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Do you want to continue on, or you?
Mr. Chairman, that pretty much takes us through the bill unless you have specific questions. I could sure answer anything.
Any specific questions? Seeing none, we'll open it up to the public for public comment. Yeah, Representative Struck.
Thank you, Chairman. I mostly came over to if you had any questions about the dam, just with Laparelle. So that was mostly why I ran over, otherwise I'll run back. I just wanted to make sure there was no if you had any, just from somebody that is there, plus is very affected by it. So mostly I'm here to just encourage that. And
Okay, yeah, well, thank you for your comments. We're working through it. And earlier, I know on the Senate side, it's all a blur now, but we passed a bill extending this water storage rights
thank you.
by 5 years, I believe it was. Senator Steinmetz probably remembers, I think it was 5 years.
It is.
Anyway, so that is an effort to help you too, to get you to that dam being built in the reservoir back. So thank you for your comments.
So, okay.
Question for Senator Hyde.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative Strack. I've kind of heard it on the fringes, but could you give us just a quick history of the dam? Did it start private, and how did it, proceed from there? What year was it built, and how did they build it? And how many acres are, using that for irrigation? How many ranches are affected? So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman and Senator Ide. So it was built in 1909 is when they completed it, and it was and still is. I don't know what's going to change now, but it was totally owned by the shareholders. And it holds 20,000 acre feet and irrigates about 11,000 acres. Since about 2018-19, we've kept it at 11,000 acres feet. They were told to restrict it. They've been able to control that no matter what's coming down from the mountains or rain. So we've kept it at that. So we've already had to keep less on our fields at this point. In the late 70s, early 80s, they did refurbish it, and the shareholders did pay for that. And what happened is they were looking at maybe doing some work on the ditches and the different, using some state, when they have those programs that state helps with part of it. They started looking, there's some cracks in there. So what's happened is the group that they hired, the HDR engineers, started looking into it, determined it was dangerous, but I think what it is if the dam was completely full and then you had the snowpack come down. So then the state engineers came in and said, yes, we're going to take your dam out. So really there was no time. And so they're going to have it done by the first part of April is what they're saying. They had told us that the beginning we would have a new dam by 2025, or at least look in repair. It would have been nice if we could have looked into some maybe repairing. What it's going to do is put there's a lot of people that are in the floodplain, a lot of homes, because homes in there since 1909. Everyone's built, and maybe no one really knows the effect of what's going to happen without the dam there, is what it amounts to. So we've got that, and then a lot of people, what's happened is you've got all these canals and ditches people have built on them. We've got a lot of people that are gonna not even have water maybe in their homes because of this. They've relied on that. So it's not just affecting the irrigators, and it's not, it's affecting the town. Yeah, people that have, you've got, go in and buy your parts and equipment and whatever you may need, and so that's going to affect them, your fuel. The other thing that's happened is the homes and buildings along the creek, could be very affected. We don't know any of those. So I guess that amendment that got put on, it was like, that's not where it should be. And we would really not, I don't want to see the slowdown of the building of this dam, because it's, and I was just, even last night it hit me, and partly I am very affected. So sometimes it's not just constituents, it's our family. I've got family at Natural Bridge all the way to the interstate, and then my family starts right there at the interstate at I-25 on Laparelle Creek, all the way almost to the river, not quite. We weren't lucky enough to have river land, or we wouldn't be hurting quite so bad. But you know, you've spent years and years developing your land. We've got pivots that totally rely on the storage rights and not, we've got some, of course, we have some of the creek rights, so we'll be, you know, down on the creek will be okay, but everything else isn't. But you spent years of putting alfalfa seed in and developing your land, and that if this goes very long, you'll have to reseed. And all of you that are in agriculture know that. So is there anything else I might have missed?
Yeah, just real quick, Representative. So yeah, it's got with very little storage in that thing and then the dam coming out. It's got to really affect you on your irrigation. I mean, as a hay producer myself, may have the spring runoff enough for to get you by the first cutting, but when it gets 90 degrees and winds blowing and the runoff has stopped, do you have enough to even try for a second or a
No.
third cutting?
There won't be enough. And so I think what was the most frustration for many of us, we came and just asked, could you just take the top off? Let us store just enough for second cutting. I will tell you, half the time, we don't have irrigation after, you know, July for sure. The dam is empty for the most part. It just depends on what your winter has been and what's water we can store and how much we've had to use, you know. So with it all coming out at one time, a lot of times the ditches will be clear full, all the canals will be full of snow, so it's not like we're gonna be able to run water down the canals to get to any of the pivots, you know, in the spring. So there is not gonna be any water, absolutely none, for our second cutting. So that's, I think, the biggest, and I don't know, I guess my biggest thing is nobody really knows. There's not a lot of records, you know, of what it was like before. And definitely no one had developed. We've developed for that many years.
Okay, well,
So,
it seems like it's proceeding at kind of a snail's pace, but it looks like it's proceeding.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
my hope and the hope of many is that it's done by 2029 or 2030 and it's filled up and you try to get back to normal. If yeah, not having a second or third cutting is a financial burden big time. So
it is. So thank you.
hopefully all those farmers and ranchers can hold on until they get back to normal. So thank you for your testimony.
Yes.
Any other questions for Representative? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Other public comment? Take it away, Senator Larson.
Thank you, Dan Larson here to comment a little bit on the omnibus water bill. I'm totally for it. Kind of want to just talk a little bit about Alkali Creek Reservoir and La Prairie Reservoir. I know you're trying to get out of here as quick as you can. I'm totally for the La Prairie. As has been mentioned, there's 60 million that is being brought out of the LSRA to account two, I think, for the La Prairie of $60 million. They took 50 million out of the Alkali Creek, and I don't think it was the right thing to do. That was actually in account 2. They've transferred it to account 3 to take it to La Prairie. But I think it sends a very bad signal to that area that if we keep dragging this on, the project will be just shut down. There are some there that don't want to give up some easements, and I want to clarify that there are ditches there already. That if they did go to court, they would be, you know, they would have a right of way or whatever. They would have an easement already because they've been there for what? I don't know how many years, 80 years, 70 years, whatever. What they're doing is they're trying to get an easement for an enlargement of the ditches of, well, let's say 2 or 3 feet on both sides. So they just need to make the ditch bigger so it'll carry some more water to the Alkali Creek Reservoir. And there are some there that totally want to just kill the project. And they are not going to get these easements if they don't go to eminent domain. I know no one wants to hear that word, but it is in our Constitution that you can do water projects and get these right-of-ways. So I will bring an amendment. I would hope that you might bring an amendment to not take that $50 million from Alkali Creek. And it's very confusing. They're saying that they're doing it because they're gonna leave money in LSRA for the Laprelle. But if you look at the page 59, it says it right there that there is appropriated from the LSRA to Water Development Account 2 of this $60 million. So it is not staying in the LSR to get bigger interest. It'll go to Account 2. So I really would ask that you put it back, that the 50 million stays in Alkali Creek. So open for questions.
Well, I see where you're coming from, Senator, but I think it's like, in my mind, one project at a time. Let's get Goshen, look how long we've been dealing with Goshen and Laprelle. And in there another 30 million from years ago appropriated for Laprelle.
Yeah, there is. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Years ago, the 50 and then the 60 and then 30 million.
Mr. Chairman, 2 years ago, they did 30 million. They're
Okay.
gonna do 60 million, so there's 90 million. The feds have given 100 million, so they're at their, they've got plenty of money without another 50 million.
In the,
So, I mean,
Great.
all these numbers just keep adding
yeah,
up.
well, and then, I'd be shocked if they get Laprelle finished by 2030, that the project isn't an additional 25%. And, if well, you can see what Goshen is going through, because there's a request for additional money there, right? So anyway, any questions of Senator Larson? Thank you.
Just real quick.
Senator Iden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in your thoughts, what is the point of getting the 50 million from Alkali to take it over to Laparelle? Tell me why you think that that's a bad idea. We've already got it funded, essentially, is what I heard, and so just leave it where it is. Is that what you would prefer? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, so they've done this extra 60 million. They're gonna bring another 50 million over that will be traded for that 60 million in a 1-to-1 match. So essentially, there's still the dollars in account 2. It serves no purpose, I think. I mean, they're just adding more dollars onto it. Like I said, there's 30 plus 60, and now they're gonna bring another 50 over to Laprelle that isn't needed. I don't know what's up. They said it was so they could get better interest in the LSRA. As far as I know, it is coming out of LSRA into account 2. Anyway, as it's stated on page 59. So anyway, thank you.
Senator Steinmetz, you look like you want to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we need to tweak that language, we certainly can, and our good appropriator could maybe help us. But if you go to your blue sheet on subsection 12 under Laprelle Dam Rehabilitation, it's 10 million from LSRA and 50 million transfer from Alkali Creek. So it's not 50 and 60. It would reduce the LSRA transfer to 10. And
What
that's
line
the
are you on
intent.
again, Senator?
I'm on the big blue sheet.
Right,
And then you're down to line L2 or 57 there,
57.
under
okay.
Laprelle Dam Rehabilitation. So if we need to tweak that language, I'm more than open to it. I think it does what we said, the way as written. So it's only gonna be 10 coming from LSRA and the 50 coming from Alkali Creek.
Oh, right, that's the last comment in that line.
Yeah, so that was the intention, and I think it does that, but if you guys think we need to tweak it, I'm glad to visit with you about it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Any further questions? All right, thank you. Further public comment? Okay, state your name and, for the record, and whoever wants to start first, take it away.
Casey Dar, I'm here with my fellow board member Rod Cross. We're from Laprelle Irrigation District. Just wanted to make ourselves available for any questions you guys might have and to clarify a couple things that came from the House that you guys might want our opinion on. First,
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, sir.
For starters, we're very concerned about the part of the amendment about leaving the dam in place during construction of the new dam. In a perfect world, that'd be great. We're giving an order to decommission the dam. We've been following that order. We currently already have 5 buttresses completely removed, and over 50% of that face of those 5 buttress sections is already removed. If this goes through as is, are we supposed to leave a partially condemned structure that is unsound and unstable to exist? I don't know the ramifications legally from all this. It really makes us nervous.
Okay, run that back in, please, sir. So they're tearing out, because I've been up there and, at the bottom and, walked across the top of the dam there. They're taking out, they've got some of those buttresses out now, all the way to the ground.
Mhm.
And the center section, part of it out, or, go ahead.
Chairman French, so with a slab buttress dam, you have those buttresses that are the main support structures of the dam, and then the slab is basically laid on the top of it.
Right,
So the most practical way for demolishing this is to use mechanical excavation because we do not want to disturb the future build site. We figured it's more prudent to do this the right way first than mess with the geology of our future build site and potentially cost us millions upon millions upon millions in grouting. So they've gone in with processors and they're just nibbling away at those buttresses. And then after they've cleared away those 5 buttress sections, and then they go in with jackhammers and they jackhammer the actual face of the dam out into the existing structure.
so what's your, so I can get it in my head here, what's your concern with this bill as it is?
With the amendment that they added about
Which
how,
amendment?
from the House about leaving the existing dam in place through the construction of the new dam.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Takes it out of there, okay.
Okay.
So is that the Boner amendment?
Yeah, the Boner, I've been working with Brian and he nailed it right on, but we just wanted to express why we were concerned about that.
Okay, go ahead.
The next thing on the $1 million grant for studies, the $19 million loan for advancement. I'm a numbers guy. The last well that was drilled in our area was 1,300 feet. It cost $1.2 million to drill and it produces 2.67 CFS of water. So even if we took the full loan amount out and we got lucky as lucky could be, and we got 15 wells that were all producing 2.67 CFS of water, which is high capacity, that's 40 CFS. Our system runs at around 160 CFS.
Is that enough to,
We're gonna wet our canals.
if you're the first guy on the,
Yeah,
yeah, from the
and-
well, it'd be all right, but.
I'm sorry, I'm a numbers guy. It's gotta make sense for me to be behind it. We really do appreciate the sentiment behind it all, but wells, I don't know. The next thing, a $19 million loan for our system, that increased our shares by $75 per share.
So.
So if we're
it's-
supposed to take
Go ahead.
$75 onto, tack that on the appropriation of people that are already hurting and trying to get by, we'll be the new version of Robin Hood. You know what I mean? It's not gonna go well.
So it sounds like you're not overly excited about that amendment. The
Sure.
wells and the loan and that.
Chairman French, we just want to build our dam. We are ripping, raring, ready to go. If we get fully funded, we could start some early work packages of curing aggregate. We could start doing some excavation on the actual build site. It could, with WWDC's permission, we could get ahead on this thing. And I know everybody's worried about, lawsuits, the environmentalists, and all this stuff. From all the legal attorneys I've spoken to, this is an existing structure. This is not a new dam. This is an existing structure, so it'd be extremely, extremely difficult for somebody to impede the construction of this progress once we started.
Because, yeah, that's kind of a narrow canyon, because they were showing us the site downstream from the current dam that's being taken out to get an area to store aggregate and mix concrete at the level that they need to when they're pouring the dam is gonna be quite the feat.
Sorry,
Go ahead, no,
Chairman French, I apologize. I'm
no,
not
no.
used to this type of thing. I apologize.
Well, I'm a farmer myself.
Yeah,
so,
I'm good at hiding in the
I'm
back and
happy out there
working.
with a
I'm not
shovel in my
a
hand.
grandstand guy at the front of the crowd generally. One thing we were evaluating, because everybody started calling me when they heard about this amendment for the 20 million. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You need a plan, you need a plan, bring a plan, bring a plan. So I've been hammering my phone because we didn't know it was coming, trying to come up with different ideas. A couple things that we came up with that we could potentially do that could provide enough long-term benefit is, one, if we get fully funded and we're able to start acquiring aggregate, start stockpiling aggregate, would there be a potential way that we could use that stockpiled aggregate to build a cofferdam of large enough capacity where we might potentially be able to irrigate a little bit? We are decommissioning the existing dam currently to where the old valves will stay in place. We would have some semblance of control. Would it be possible to take the aggregate, once we're fully funded, use it temporarily to build a cofferdam, and then as we're building our new dam, pull off that cofferdam and then feed into the system? That gives us a lot of bang for buck. Sounds cost beneficial to everybody involved. We thought about that. Another thought process we had was, what if we put a bunch of smaller reservoirs throughout the system? That provides long-term benefit because we could more regulate our system better. The users at the end of the ditch would have more consistent water. We could temporarily transfer our storage from our existing reservoir to those smaller reservoirs. So that would also protect our water reservoirs and give a place where some landowners could store some water. We've been looking at that, but like I said, we didn't have any heads up, so this is 10 days worth of me typing on my phone, calling people.
You would want a bunch of smaller reservoirs versus the dam?
No, this would
The
be.
dam and smaller
Yes.
reservoirs.
These
in
smaller
the future.
reservoirs would be, think of it like when, with a water well, you got your pressure tank, right? These smaller reservoirs would act like pressure tanks throughout the system. It'd be somewhere where we could temporarily, during the construction of the new dam, put water to maintain our storage rights and then evenly distribute it. But like I said, we're pretty happy just with getting our dam built.
Right.
That's what our main concern is.
I don't have an answer for you there. I think the director might be the one to talk to on that, because additional storage rights versus, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you
We've
there.
talked, but
Do you want to come up and, do you have an answer to something like that?
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, he's talking about the amendment with the $20 million. Now that's 1 and 19, the Yin amendment.
Well, I think
Go back to
he's,
that, but
I
yes,
think he's talking, correct me, sir, but I think he's talking about going ahead with the dam, but below the dam, a bunch of like, for lack of a better word, storage tanks down through their system that they can fill and use when appropriate. Is that correct? You wouldn't fill them off the wells, or would you fill them off the wells?
from our studies, we don't feel wells are a practical source at this time personally, just from the limited time we've had to evaluate, Chairman French.
and Mr. Chairman, the Yin amendment changed wells to also or other water supply projects, which would then tie in with what Casey's saying here about small reservoirs. if you
How
can
long
get
does
them
it
built,
take to, because anytime you impound water, there's issues. How long would something like that take them,
Mr.
that
Chairman,
irrigation district?
I think the devil's in the details of where the reservoir would sit. Does it involve waters of the US? Would you have to get permits in place? until we knew more information and could kind of ferret that out. I can't say if it would be something quick or if you would be done reconstructing
You
the
know,
new
if
dam
it's
before you could get one of these. small
Something
dams.
done, because before you know it, there's gonna be the irrigation season, even though it's colder than heck out there. It won't be long and be irrigating things. So if it takes 3 years and the dam's gonna be finished in 5, then it's like, was that a wise use of funds? And you have an additional appropriation on your per acre, or however your system runs. We're assessed X amount per acre based on the type of land you got. So, you know, adding more cost, but gaining a year or two, I don't know, I can't answer that one.
And Chairman French, within our bylaws, in order for us to take a loan, it has to be a 2/3 vote of the district. And judging from the experience of previous meetings of raising our shares by $2 to start saving for repairs, I don't think it's gonna go well. So we appreciate the sentiment on this amendment. We don't know about it though.
Like I said a little earlier, it seems like you're not overly excited about that. Do you want that amendment to go away, or do you want it left in there?
Chairman French, we're okay with it being left. We just don't want it to bog everything down. If somebody's upset by this amendment, or it makes somebody mad, or it's the problem with getting this bill through, we don't worry about it.
I don't think it'll bog down the new dam. That's just something that is there if your members want to use it. You don't have to use it, I don't think. Senator Craigo might be able to correct me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess I'll just ask the very pointed question. Do you think you're actually going to use that $20 million?
Like I said, Chairman French, Senator Craigo, like I said, in our bylaws, we're required to get a 2/3 vote. And everybody's hurting right now. Nobody's been doing well. I feel good about having the option there, but at the same time, I don't foresee a 2/3 vote occurring to where we would be able to access $19 million in loans.
Senator Craigo, follow up?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Casey, is that a no or a yes? And the reason I'm asking is we just had a very long conversation about sticking 50 million in a different reservoir, right? This is money we're gonna appropriate, and I personally don't want to send it and have it set in an account if it's not gonna get used when it could be returning money for for other projects. So that's why I'm getting at, if you say we will use this and it would be helpful, then I'd feel very differently. If you sit here and say, it's not very likely we're gonna use the 20 million, then I'm not likely to support it myself.
Chairman French, Senator Craigo, send flowers to my funeral, but I don't think we're gonna use it. And that's my personal opinion. That's not the board. We haven't discussed this fully, but my personal opinion, we're not gonna get a 2/3 vote. There's no way. People get upset over $2. We tell them it's gonna be 75.
I understand where you're short of water, and short of water in this state means shorter crops, and that translates into shorter revenue and on down the line. So, well, okay, we'll, here, when we're done with public comment, we'll bring that amendment up, and the committee will vote on whether to kill that amendment or leave it in there. But based on what I'm hearing from the board member, do others want to speak to this or not? I believe he's gonna go. Just state your name.
Mr. Chairman, Rod Cross, I'm on the board. Casey's about said it all. He's said, he took the words right out of my mouth. I feel the same way.
Okay, all right. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Chris Mickey with Wyoming Business Alliance. I don't have any specific comments on this project, but just the overall bill in general. We support the bill before you. We understand how critically important water is to businesses in Wyoming. And so, you know, we just stand in support of this and understand how complicated each individual project is. But in general, we appreciate all the work done by the Select Water Committee, this committee, and the Water Development Commission. So we're in support of this. Thank you.
Okay. Further comments? And thanks for your comments. I get it as a longtime farmer and irrigator, I get it. Any questions or comments? Thank you.
All right, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Yep. Any further public comment? If so, come on up. Seeing none, I think we have some online, don't we? Got enough paper to, good grief. I believe the first one is Gary Chateau, if I'm pronouncing it right. If you'd bring him in, please, Clayton.
First is, Gary Shadows declined to testify, but first is Kevin Struckner.
So he's not wanting to comment. So next would be Peter Roche, is that correct?
Kevin Strucker is ready to testify.
Which one, this one here? Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Kevin Strecker, General Manager of Goshen Irrigation District, and just want to say thank you for your support in this bill if you choose to move forward with it, and means a lot to our project. I know it's become kind of an ugly beast and kind of been a lengthy process here, but we are making progress. We're between the 60 and 90% design level. But without this help and funding, we would not be fully funded, and the project would be at a standstill until we secure other funding. So we really appreciate the support if it goes through. And just like say, you know, we have all of our right of ways secured now, anticipating our NEPA process and our finding of no significant impact in this project to be completed by March, which would mean we could start doing some early work packages this summer, getting lay down spots ready, and hopefully some construction by next fall. So yeah, like I say, if any of you have any questions or anything, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions or comments for Kevin? Thank you, Kevin, for your testimony.
Thank you.
Who's up next, Clayton?
Next is Gary Shadow. He managed to join.
He's online now. Okay, all right. Bring him in, please.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Oh, let's see, can you bring me? Just 1 second, Chairman. There we are.
There you go.
Okay. Briefly, and I know some of this will be reiterating what some of the other members have said, but Chairman French and committee members, my name is Gary Shadow. I'm president of the Laprelle Irrigation District, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to ask for your support of House Bill 117. I would like to speak to you today from the heart. As you know, the Laprelle Dam has been condemned by the state engineer's office and is to be decommissioned. The money we are asking you to support is for the construction of the new dam. This money, added to what we already have with federal funding, will provide full funding for our project and allow early work orders, which can decrease the cost and speed up construction. Our project of building the new dam has been moving forward as it is supposed to. Our consultants are doing an amazing job, working with the various agencies, obtaining the necessary permits, and continuing with the design process. I know sometimes people feel that if they can't actually put a hand on it, see something being done, they don't think anything's being done. But over the past years, obtaining all those permits, you don't get anything done in a week or a few months. It's 6 months, and then it turns into a year. But it is progressing as it is supposed to. The LaPrelle Dam over the past 116 years has proved its purpose and proved its worth. It protects 11,462 acres of precious Wyoming water right, stores 20,000 acre-feet of water, and serves 94 miles of laterals and canals. Our shareholders have been good stewards of those 11,462 acres and have maximized those acres' productivity. But now those acres are dependent on the water from the LaPrelle Dam. Without that water, our shareholders will struggle to produce the crops needed to raise their livestock, which in turn makes their operations stay in business. Each shareholder will be affected in different degrees, and many already have loans for their land, their equipment, and the necessities needed for operating an agricultural business. Now they will have to obtain extra loans to buy feed for their livestock. This could have a trickle-down effect to our local economy, as these shareholders support our local businesses, our local schools, churches, and thus are a large part of the local economy. The dam also provides a very important role in protecting the infrastructure below it. It protects the roads, the bridges, the head gates, part of I-25, and the Wyoming Natural Wonder, which is the Natural Bridge Park. That is not just a little park. That park is a summer destination for people from all over the world. It hosts weddings and birthdays all summer long. The dam is responsible for many of the wells and springs in the area, which already are showing a decrease. When this project is completed, we will look back and say we are glad we did this when we could and when the funding was available. Water projects, as you know, keep getting more and more expensive. The time is now. The new dam will be an amazing structure and one Wyoming can be proud of, and will store precious Wyoming water for generations and generations to come. Thank you for your time, and I am open to any other further questions that you may have.
Any questions, Gary? Seeing none, thank you, sir, for your testimony. Up
Thank you,
next-
Chairman French. Thank you, committee.
Yeah, thank you. We have a couple more that were. One more, okay. And probably my fault, but we're gonna, I can see we're going to run out of time. So we're gonna have to move this right along.
Mr. Chairman,
It's my fault.
Peter Roush is unmuted and he's able to speak.
Can you, are you able to speak, sir?
Yep, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I was waiting to make sure I wasn't speaking out of turn. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and committee. My name is Pete Roush, engineer and project manager for RESPEC. Here just on behalf of the LaPrelle Irrigation District, really just to answer any technical questions that may have come up. And understanding you're short on time, I'll leave it there.
Okay, any questions for the person that's helping to design this thing? Seeing none, thank you, sir, for your comment. Is the other one wanting to speak? Justin?
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
That's it? Okay. All right, any other public comment? Any further comment? Seeing none. Board, what's your wishes on moving the bill? The bill, House Bill 117 has been moved by Senator Pearson. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Crago. Okay, we've got a couple, everybody, I assume it's a big bill, a lot of stuff, it's just talking about the projects, but we've got a couple of different things here. I think first off is the Yen amendment, that speaks of the $20 million, 1 million as a grant, 19, spread over 30 years at 2%. Is there a motion to Senator Craigo?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. So my motion would be to, on page 11, beginning at line 14, delete the remainder of page 11, delete all of page 12.
Okay, just a minute. Let us catch up here. Page 11 from line 14,
Delete the remainder of the page.
delete, okay.
Delete all of page 12
Delete all of 12.
and delete page 13, lines 1 through 18.
1 through 18 on page 13.
Yes, sir.
And that is essentially the Yin amendment, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, it's more than just the Yin amendment. I think it's a combination of several amendments. The culmination was the Yin amendment. I think there was a standing committee amendment that started this process, and then it got converted to a loan and grant versus just grant program. But based on what we're hearing from the folks from the district, Mr. Chairman, it's not going to be used. And so we're just going to be parking money again that's not going to be used. And so the amendment would my proposed amendment would just get rid of that program that we've heard testimony is not going to be used anyways.
Okay, you've heard the amendment by Senator Craigo. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Senator Ide. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No? All right, that amendment has passed. Next up, there's an amendment by Senator Boner that starts on page 60. The first part of it, page 60, line 6, is just delete A. Then the meat of it is page 60, lines 10 through 20, delete entirely. Page 61, lines 1 through 13, delete entirely. So is there somebody gonna move that amendment?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
would you cover that one more time? We're basically deleting B, C, and then all of the subsections under C. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
just give me a second here. On page 60, the Boner's proposed amendment, page 60, line 6, all it does is delete A. And then staying on 60, lines 10 through 20 is deleted entirely, delete entirely. Then on the next page, page 61, delete entirely 1 through 13. So is there somebody who want to move that
I'll
amendment?
move that amendment.
That amendment's been moved by Senator Ide. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Senator McEwen. Comments on that? Everybody understand what we're doing there with the Boner amendment? All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say no. That amendment has passed. Okay, next up is, I believe that's all the amendments.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Senator Craigo.
I have one other amendment for discussion at least.
Okay,
Let me get to the right page. Page 47.
a minute here, page 47. Okay, we're at,
The very last line, line 21. So just a little bit of discussion because I think we at least ought to talk about this. During the interim, the Select Water changed the reversion date for the Alkali Creek Reservoir. It was set to expire, the reversion date is July 1, 2025. We went back and forth, had a lot of discussion, and in the end, eventually, the Water Committee decided on 2026. And that was the will of that particular committee, that the 9 million that was left would revert if by 2026, the folks, the project sponsors didn't have the easements or right-of-way sorted out. And we went back and forth. There was a lot of discussion. Should it be 2026? Should it be 2027? And just to be fair, the commission actually had given till, I think, 2029. That was the commission's decision. The Select Water did not agree with that. And I think it wasn't unanimous, because there might have been one or two people from that part of the world on the committee, but the rest of the committee thought 2029 was too far out. And so I guess I'd at least like us to have the discussion. I will propose amendment, and it doesn't have to be 2026, but I think 2029 is too long. That's 4 more years of those folks up there just fighting it out and not getting anywhere. And us just parking $9 million again, that's not gonna be used. And so I'll make a motion that we take it back to 2026, which is what was in the original water bill. If for no other reason, so that we can have the discussion here and then also have the discussion on the floor. So we would strike 2029 on line 21 and put in 2026. That would be my motion, Mr. Chairman.
So what that essentially does is 1 year from July 1st, if they don't have all their ducks in a row, the 9 million reverts back. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, that's right. And the other thing to remember is we will have another session where we will be doing the water bill again. And if they're making significant progress by next year, and they're almost there except for one easement or something like that, we can go back in and change that. But I'm of the opinion, if we don't put some pressure on that particular project, and I know the director has a little bit, we've had some back and forth, and the department feels a little bit differently about that than some of the rest of us, and they have valid points too. I'm not saying they don't. I think this is just a policy choice for us as this committee, and then when we get to the floor for the Senate as a whole. So, but that's what it would do. It would revert back July 1 of next year if they're not able to get everything put together. Again, we can have that discussion. Maybe 2027, is the right date. I don't know, but we still would have next year's session to fix it if they're making significant progress. And if not, well, that's probably a pretty good sign too.
Right, well, yeah, we'll be down here in a year to do the biennial budget, and I would agree, we should know something by then on progress or lack of progress. So, that's the amendment. Is there a second to that? Changing that date, it's been changed from 2025 to 2029. The amendment changes that to July 1st, 2026. I'll second it, seeing no second. Further discussion on that? Seeing none, those in favor of that Craigo amendment, say aye.
Aye.
That has passed. Okay, any other amendments to House Bill 117?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Senator Ide.
Yeah, there was some discussion earlier with Senator Steinmetz and Senator Larson that was a little bit still confusing to me, for that matter. And Senator Steinmetz mentioned that she would get with, or maybe discuss that with Senator Larson to work on whatever his concerns were with that. Is there any discussion on that?
Yeah, I would call Senator Steinmetz back up because it kind of spells that out, but there is some confusion. Was it 60 million plus 50 million, 110 plus 30? What's the number? Senator Craigo?
Mr. Chairman, I was just gonna volunteer to help. If you turn to page 59 in your gross version of the bill,
Just a second.
in
Page, I'm almost there. Go ahead.
So the language, and this is what Senator Steinmetz was referring to, is, so this is standard appropriation language in paragraphs B and C. And so the 50 million in paragraph B, we are pulling from the water accounts, which is right now earmarked for alkali. We're pulling it from there, and there's another amendment within the bill that shows we're pulling the 50 million from there. And then we're putting it towards La Perelle. And then the C down there, we're not adding additional money. That's just standard appropriation language. So for some reason, because the committee wanted to make sure we had the money for La Perelle. And so if for some reason something happened in B, C would take over. But if you read down through C, it says it's reduced by every dollar that's appropriated pursuant to paragraph B. So there's no confusion. It's drafted exactly like the good senator said, as she would know, when she was chairman of water, she understood that, and I don't think it's confusing. There's not an additional 60 million. The only way that would be is if for some reason we changed and took out paragraph B and said we don't want to pull the money from alkali, then we would still be appropriating 60 million for La Perelle to make sure it happens as well.
Okay, Senator Steinmetz.
Mr. Chairman, that's exactly correct. It was kind of a backup plan if for some reason someone chose to amend that out. But it's only 10 million from LSRA. The 50 comes, as the bill is written now, from Alkali Creek. But if the appropriators that we're working with which wish to tweak something, because it will have to go before them too. But I think to us, it was very clear on the Select Water Committee. But, you'll have to re-refer this bill, so if they want to clarify that. Now, if it's just a policy choice of which fund we use, then, we have our reasons for why we want to use the Alkali Creek money rather than LSRA. So we can have a policy discussion. I think the bill is clear, but if our good appropriators want to tweak some language, I'm open to visiting with them about that.
Thank you.
Okay, so everybody clear that it's not the 110 million? It's what the good senator said.
It's 60 million in total.
Right.
10 from LSRA, 50 from Alkali Creek.
Right, for 60 total. It's not
Correct.
60 plus 50.
No, it's not.
Okay, all right. Any other comments, questions on this? Okay, it looks like roll call for House Bill 117 as amended. Clayton?
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 117 as amended. Senator Craigo?
Aye.
Senator Ide?
Aye.
Senator McEwen?
Aye.
Senator Pearson?
Aye.
Chairman French?
Aye.
Mr.
All
Chairman?
right, thanks, everybody. We've got about 15 minutes to start on I think we'll start on the next one we had up here. Get through my blizzard of paper here. I believe it was 234, wasn't it, Clayton? Next? Okay. Is there anybody here to speak on, God, Lord, so much paper. Jeez. It's incredible. Anybody here to speak on House Bill 234? Senator Ide was going to speak on behalf of Representative Alamand, and anyone else, please come up. Did you want to say something, ma'am? Please come on up. So either here or down, wherever you're comfortable, Senator.
I'll just do it here.
Okay.
So we've got House Bill 234 here. This is just a good Second Amendment right, protecting our God-given rights here at the sporting goods stores. So essentially, members, without going through the bill line by line, what this bill does is, generally speaking, when you're buying firearms or ammunition at the merchant's store, whether it's sporting goods store, or gun store, or whatever, they classify everything as general merchandise. And so what this bill does is it essentially protects the customer's privacy to where they can't separately categorize ammunition and firearms on your credit card to, for the prying eyes of whoever it is trying to look to see what you're purchasing with your credit card effectively. Or let's go through here. I'll just kind of hit it real quick. Any person knowingly violates this is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable.
What page in line?
Yeah, page 2, just at the top of the page.
Okay.
Criminal actions. There's a fine there of $2,000. Financial record means, financial record held by a merchant, servicer related to a payment card transaction that the merchant servicer has processed or facilitated, including any information derived from the financial record. Firearms retailer effectively defines that, means any person engaged in lawful business of selling or trading firearms. Ammunition, definition there. Antique firearm, which is in WS 68403. Most of this is just a lot of definitions. The meat of the bill is just what I explained earlier. Let's see here, on to page 6. See if you guys can kind of read all that as we go through here. Is basically trying to keep merchants from getting records that can be accessed by, the powers that be that want to try to take away your Second Amendment rights or any of your Bill of Rights, essentially here. Okay. Let's see. Mr. Alaman could probably go this more thoroughly, but I read the bill, and you guys obviously can read this as well to get any details. Here at the very end on page 10, if the person knowingly and willfully fails to comply with 30 days after being served with the injunction, the Attorney General, upon petition to the court, shall recover on behalf of the state a civil penalty not to exceed $10,000 for each violation of the act committed after the expiration of the 30-day period. With that, I'll open it up for questions if anybody has any questions on this bill.
Okay, any questions of Senator Ide on behalf of Representative Alaman on this bill? This time doesn't mean we can't come back to it. I'll open it up to public comment, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Kathy Russell, Executive Director for the Wyoming Republican Party, and speaking on behalf of the party. This particular subject, the right to defend yourself, in this case by means of guns, is the subject of one of our legislative priorities for this session, as well as 4 platform planks and many resolutions. This is a big topic for Republicans across the state. This bill is proactive in closing one of the, not the loopholes, but one of the targets that has become useful by the activists in wanting to control the use of guns for self-defense. This is death by 1,000 cuts, and this bill would cut that off. prohibit that. And so we would stand in favor of this bill and ask you to pass it to proactively prohibit anything that could happen on another level to restrict the use of self-defense by guns. Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much. Any other public comment? I think we have one online, don't we? If you bring them in, please. He's there. Mr. Jones, you there?
Okay, can you gentlemen hear me?
Yes, we can. Can't see you just yet. There you go. You're good to go.
Very good, thank you. Thank you. Sorry it took me so long to get in.
No, no
Mr.
problem.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and committee, thank you. I'll be brief. This bill is necessary because of efforts at the international level. Amalgamated Bank convinced a Swiss-based organization that establishes these merchant category codes to try to push them into the United States. Some blue states have mandated these be used, states like California. Other states like Texas and Florida and hopefully Wyoming are pushing back against these and make them illegal in the state. And essentially this is, it really started with an international effort to push gun control into the United States. There's no reason a Wyoming merchant should want to use these codes. There's really no excuse for it. And again, these are pushed upon the merchants by the credit card processors, but there is no reason a credit card processor should want to do that. The only reason to do this is to identify who's selling firearms and target those people. People get confused about what this is at its current stage. What this is really doing is letting financial entities identify who's selling guns, and particularly the small ones will be targeted. They'll be debanked. They'll be credit will be revoked. This has all been written about by these international groups. So, and if this is allowed to go to its natural conclusion, it'll get to the point where they're actually tracking individual purchases of firearms. So it just is to be nipped in the bud. We have a presidential administration now that's friendly, that's going to oppose this, but we won't always have that. Things can change. The Biden administration pushed this. Trump will not, but if we see a new president in 4 years, we could go right back to where this is being pushed again. So we need to do the same thing Texas and Florida and some other states have done and just nip this in the bud now. So GOA certainly stands in support of the bill, and thanks you for your time this morning.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for Mr. Jones? Senator Grego.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Mr. Jones. So I just had a quick question. I see the need for the bill in support of that. My question is on the interplay between, when we get towards the back on the enforcement mechanisms, could you explain to us how, and we're missing a paragraph C, which is in the current law and is not showing up in our bill draft, but could you explain the interplay between paragraphs A, B, C that we're missing, D and E? I just want to make sure we're not making it more confusing, because as I'm sitting here, we're having these different mechanisms, and one of them allows the Attorney General or requires the Attorney General to commence an action, but then the next paragraph says if the Attorney General does not. So just, could you help us understand that, so when we get to the floor, we can understand that a little bit better?
Yes, Senator. When we had this discussion, and Mr. Chairman, Senator, when we had this discussion in the House committee, the intent of this, and I didn't know that section had been left out when it got posted, but the Attorney General would be obligated to act, and if the Attorney General doesn't act within a certain period of time, the individual whose rights or whose privacy is being violated, either the merchant or the individuals who have had their privacy violated through the merchant, they could then seek civil relief against the entity that is forcing the disclosure of this information, essentially. This is not meant to target like a sporting goods store who is having this forced upon them by the merchant category code, the people that established the merchant category code. This is not meant to do that. This is meant to, if the AG doesn't resolve this, let the person go to civil court against the people assigning the merchant category codes. And if that needs to be cleaned up, we certainly support that. But that is the intent here, is to go after the people forcing the merchant category codes into Wyoming. And the other thing I'll say is that I think that if we tighten this up and get this right, what other states have seen is it's a great deterrent. The people pushing these merchant category codes don't want to do it when states put provisions in place that threaten them with either AG action or civil lawsuits. They back off really quickly. So I'm certainly willing to, to consider they may need to be cleaned up, but that is the intent of this, is if the AG doesn't act within a certain period of time, the person can go to civil court if they want to and go after these people pushing these codes into Wyoming.
Any further questions? Mr. Jones, thank you very much. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Okay, back on the bill here. Are there any amendments to it at all? Seeing none. Clayton, roll call. Oh, I spoke too soon. Senator Craigo.
Mr. Chairman, one of us needs to actually move the bill first.
Yeah, you're
And then
correct.
we might need a little bit of discussion just for, if you don't mind.
I got ahead of myself. Motion to move the bill?
Move the bill.
Motion by Senator Ide. Is there a second? Second. Second by Senator McEwen. Discussion on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, just 2 seconds.
go
I
ahead.
think between now and when we work this on the floor, I think we need to carefully consider, and I don't have paragraph C, so I need to get that in front of me. I think there's some conflicting language within this bill we may have to work on as we get to the floor. Just to clean that up, I think Mr. Jones alluded to that a little bit too, so hopefully we can all work together. I don't have the amendment thought of, I can't think of it off on the fly right here. I think it might be a little more complicated than that, but we can definitely do it later. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, can you get with Representative Almond and discuss it and figure out where C went and kind of tighten it up?
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to do that. C is not in the bill because we're not amending paragraph C, so it's already statutory language. I just don't have that in front of me, and I don't know exactly what it says and how that flows. I just want to make sure we're not actually doing more harm than we are good with the language we're putting in there, that we're not making it more confusing or harder for folks to actually enforce the law. That's all. Yeah.
Okay. Good. So, all of us can work on it, but if you can get with Representative Almond and kind of guide us through it. Thank you. Any other comments on the bill? Question being called. Clayton?
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 234. Senator Craigo. Aye. Senator Ide.
Aye.
Senator McEwen.
Aye.
Senator Pearson.
Aye.
Chairman French.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that is 5 ayes.
House Bill number 234 has passed the committee 5-0. Representative Locke, like I said, if time permitted, I don't believe we can go through yours in a couple of minutes, do you? Okay, you'll be first up Thursday morning, is that good? Okay, we'll schedule you for first thing Thursday morning. My apologies, and I'm sure it was me talking too much. All right, thank you, Representative. Anything else to come before the committee? The Ag Committee is